Steel Magnolias unites the unique talents of America's finest actresses, Sally Field, Julia Roberts, Shirley MacLaine, Olympia Dukakis, Daryl Hannah, Dolly Parton. Bonded together through thick and thin.
You know what they say? That which does not kill us makes us stronger.
As strong as steel. Steel Magnolias, the funniest film ever to make you cry. Thursday at 9.
Another movie to warm the cockles of your heart this Saturday on Central. Bette Midler and Barbara Hershey star in Beaches at 8:30.
Galaxy Dove. When luxurious dairy ice cream is covered in smooth galaxy chocolate, you're definitely otherwise engaged. Why have ordinary ice cream when you can have Galaxy Dove?
6:30 in the morning. I must be mad. But you've only got to look at them to know why I do it.
Good boy, Storm. Fetch it.
After all that exercise, they can't wait to get stuck into a really meaty meal. Pedigree Chum is satisfying, meaty nourishment, packed solid with all the goodness they need. I can't imagine life without my dogs. I wouldn't even consider giving them anything but the best to keep them bursting with energy.
Pedigree Chum. Top breeders recommended.
Spot the ball on 4 as tomorrow sees travels à la carte sampling the freeze-dried delights of Norway.
Yum yums.
Do you think he wants to become a member?
More cult viewing in Brookside.
Beth. What?
Will Mandy pop the question?
It's making women less independent, not more independent.
The Child Support Act and women rappers, 2 diverse topics tackled by First Sex. Thankfully, football free tomorrow from 8 on 4.
Each to their own. Tomorrow on Central, Germany are hoping to further their World Cup ambitions. They take on Spain. See the action live tomorrow on Central at 8:30.
From the headquarters of ITN, News at 10 with Trevor Mcdonald.
A bar owner's grief, a province in despair. Critical stage as rail talks go on into the night. O.J. Simpson in court, he says he's not guilty. And Agassi's back, but where's the fun in tennis today? Good evening. The misery of mindless killing in Northern Ireland was etched on the face of a Loughlin Island bar owner today. Hugh O'Toole returned to his bar and broke down when he was shown where 6 of his regulars had been shot dead. Shockwaves from the attack have spread well beyond the close-knit country village. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Sir Patrick Mayhew, gave the clearest hint yet that the government may be prepared to bring back internment for terrorist suspects. ITN's Andrew Simmons reports from Northern Ireland.
It was too distressing for Hugh O'Toole. He returned from a charity trip to Romania to find his quiet country pub the scene of mass murder. He could only stay inside for a few seconds. Mr. O'Toole is an ordinary bar owner who ran a cheerful pub frequented by both Protestants and Catholics. Now it's another landmark in the senseless violence of Ulster. The loss of so many friends was too much for him to bear.
Just destroyed me. You obviously weren't able to stay in the pub very long.
Jesus, the blood stuff. Didn't think it possible here. Like a quiet country pub. That doesn't make that ever happen. It should happen here.
What would you say of your friends, your customers?
Great people. Best of people.
He may never be the same man and is thinking of closing down his bar.
I don't know. I could never stand behind a bar again.
Hugh O'Toole's trauma was felt all over Northern Ireland today. In Belfast, the funerals of 2 of the victims of this latest upsurge in violence were underway. 8 more graves will be dug this week. One of the dead was a member of the UVF, the terror group responsible for the Loughlin Island atrocity.
Yeah, keep more back from there, mother.
Only yards away from the funeral, more violence. A rocket attack on policemen. By sheer good fortune, nobody was injured. But as always with such attacks, ordinary passers-by were caught in the middle and then led away in deep shock. And a short time later, another lucky escape. A loyalist terrorist was about to carry out another sectarian murder when his gun jammed. A delivery driver was the target. He was going into this loyalist pub, but he's a Catholic, and that's why he was a target. With this sort of loyalist violence now running out of control, the Secretary of State warned that internment can't be ruled out.
It isn't for nothing that this government insists on renewing annually, asking Parliament to renew annually the provision for internment. There is a downside and there are advantages. It is necessary that that should be on the statute book.
Sinn Féin's Gerry Adams has promised a response to the Anglo-Irish Peace Initiative within days. He said the Loughlin Island atrocity was a premeditated loyalist attack on the initiative and appealed for no Republican reprisals.
It is an undisputed fact that the intensity of loyalist terrorism rises and falls in direct line with the Protestant perception of whether Catholics and nationalists are making political headway. And in loyalist areas such as this, there is a real sense that the pendulum is swinging in the nationalist favour. It appears that a growing number of Protestants are beginning to believe that the gunman, not the politician, can further their cause.
I think for the first time people in lower middle class areas and working class areas are saying they support these people because violence is the only way of getting somewhere, and they cite the secret discussions between the IRA and the government.
In a city where many bars have become like fortresses, fear is nothing new, but it's becoming endemic. Television sets here don't show football matches, they survey if a gunman might be outside. Andrew Simmons, News at 10, Belfast.
ITN's John Draper, who reported the massacre during the weekend, is in Belfast and joins us now. John, we heard those comments in Andrew Simmons's report. What do you make of the strategy of the loyalist terrorists? Is it to bomb and shoot their way to the table, or to disrupt the talks aimed at reaching some accommodation?
Well, I think it's important to remember that many loyalists in Northern Ireland, not just terrorists, regard the process that's going on at the moment as not a peace process, but a sellout of what they believe in. And they think that what's happening is that the British government is appeasing the IRA, that Northern Ireland is sliding into union with the Republic against the wishes of the majority here. And that's happening not because of the number of votes cast for Sinn Féin, but because of the number of people killed by the IRA. So the loyalist terrorists are saying, we've learned the lesson of the IRA, votes don't count for anything, what counts is the number of people who are killed. And they think that they can influence the London government, they don't really care much about the Dublin government, by killing as many people as they can.
That must make it a very uncomfortable political atmosphere in Northern Ireland tonight.
It is very tense at the moment, and clearly people are worried, notwithstanding what Gerry Adams said about tit-for-tat reprisals and calling for no reprisals on the Republican side. There is a fear that that will happen, but people are also aware that when we've had these dreadful events in the past, sometimes inexplicably there's been a lull in the violence, perhaps for a week or 2 weeks. The violence always comes back. It's always just a respite. So whether it happens in a few weeks' time or more immediately, people have that fear that the violence, that knowledge that the violence almost certainly will come back. So clearly there is tension here.
John Draper in Belfast, thank you. The people of Loughlin Island had hoped to be spared the horrors of terrorism. So how has Saturday night's attack affected them? ITN's Colin Baker sent this report from the village.
The savagery of life callously taken was matched only by the depth of agony, the torment and the despair, and the forever asked question, why, which accompanied all who carried Barney Green from his home this evening for the last time. It was such a short journey to the nearby chapel, but for Barney Green, a man almost as old as a century, and his nephew who died with him, it was one a community still undivided turned out to share. To outsiders, they were Protestants and Catholics, but in this sad corner of County Down, they were just friends and neighbours. No one wore a label. Loughlin Island could have been in a time warp. The troubles were elsewhere. The community here welded by friendship and the needs of a rural neighbourhood. Elsewhere, it could have been a safe haven, except it had never been threatened from outside.
People here felt immune from the troubles. After all, what harm were they doing? Working the land, tending sheep, in general, minding their own business. Barney Green wouldn't go to Belfast. He was afraid of the city. He was afraid of going there and being shot. And then on Saturday night, the absolute unthinkable happened. Belfast came here.
Barney Green played whist and watched football. He was 87, but age was no protection. Neither is it for these village children. This morning the school bus was on time, but not all the seats were taken.
We have two wee boys here whose daddy died, and their uncle as well, Martin and Paul Byrne. And we have two other wee boys whose daddy was in the bar and miraculously escaped. So the school has been hit in a very, very big way.
Tomorrow the village will bury its dead, but hopefully not its spirit. Colin Baker, News at 10, Luckin Island, County Down.
The Transport Minister John McGregor made a last-ditch plea to signalmen today to call off their second rail strike planned for Wednesday. But hopes of a breakthrough aren't good, and the talks are dragging on at the conciliation service ACAS tonight. Our industrial correspondent Mark Webster is there. Mark, is there anything new on the table in these talks?
Well, the rail track team did go in an hour and a half late after a board meeting, saying that they had a detailed package to put to trade unions. They've certainly spent the last 48 hours desperately trying to increase the pay element in the offer since the last unsuccessful ACAS talks on Saturday. But in return, they obviously want productivity gains from the trade unions. Now, the trade union side went in very much more gloomy about the prospects of a successful outcome, saying that after all, they were still looking for an 11% pay increase before they were prepared to discuss changes in work practices.
And how do you read it, Mark? Do you expect a result tonight?
Well, while they're still talking, obviously there has to be a glimmer of hope. However, I think the outlook is pretty bleak, and there's a very good chance that in 26 hours the signalmen will go on strike and we'll have another day of a complete shutdown of the rail network. However, the difficulty that they're facing is this, and at the heart of the dispute is the fact that whereas the unions say they will talk about pay once they've agreed deals on productivity, obviously the management is saying, well, it's got to be the other way around. Now, until you've resolved that dilemma, there's not going to be any further progress. And I think probably tonight that the outcome looks pretty gloomy.
Mark Webster at ACAS, thank you. Shares took another big tumble today amid fears of high inflation and rising interest rates. About £14 billion were wiped off the value of companies on the London Stock Exchange. It was a similar picture in Tokyo and in Europe. At one stage, the FTSE index of 100 leading shares fell more than 85 points. It recovered to close the day down nearly 52 points at 2,971.1. In New York, the Dow Jones closed down nearly 35 points at 3,741.9. Andre Gordon, the toddler who disappeared with his babysitter 2 days ago, is back home safely tonight. Concern for Andre's safety had grown when the babysitter failed to respond to appeals to return the child. But this afternoon they were spotted in Birmingham. Here's our Midlands reporter Jim Buchanan.
Back in the arms of Mum after 2 days missing without trace. For Karen Gordon, sheer relief at seeing him safe.
I don't know, I just hugged him. I was pleased too.
Andre had disappeared from his tower block home on Saturday night. He was being looked after by neighbour Fiona McCory, but in the early hours they both vanished. This morning a tearful Karen appealed for his safe return at a news conference. A short time later, baby and babysitter were spotted by police, who arranged a joyful reunion.
So what are you going to do tonight?
Take him home, give him back something to eat and put him to sleep. Because that's why he was tired.
Fiona McCory has been questioned for several hours about Andre's disappearance. It's not known whether there will be any charges, but police say they'll treat her sympathetically. Andre doesn't know about the fuss his disappearance caused, and Karen's just happy to have him back. Jim Buchanan, News at 10, Birmingham.
Coming up next on News at 10, in court tonight, O.J. Simpson enters his plea to murder charges. In the firing line, how will the RAF fare in defence cuts? And as Wimbledon gets underway, has the fun gone out of tennis?
I'll be asking great players from the past, like Ilie Nastase, whether they think the modern game needs to be changed.
in the future, all mobile phone networks may use digital technology for clearer calls. In the future, all calls may be charged by the second, not by the minute. In the future, all mobile phone networks may offer call time as part of your monthly charge. And in the future, all mobile phones may have 2 lines and an answer phone built in. But today, only Orange offers all this and more to 33 million people. Call for a brochure on 0800 286 286.
The Renault 19 and Clio Viva. From £6,666.
Excuse me, Sir Brian. Got the present, sir? Of course, Bob. Enough in the whip round, then. £75 and 14p. 14p? You put that in? Don't suppose you bought it with your... With my Barclay card? Oh, yes, obviously. Boff, I had a manila envelope stuffed with cash, and so naturally, I used Barclay card.
Well, it would have been insured against loss or damage.
Bob! This is the wedding of the daughter of the head of MI7. There are 4 men on the roof, 2 in the choir, and the vicar has no previous convictions. I think that's ample insurance for a china teapot.
Cavendish House, Rackham's, Dickens and Jones, Jolly's. On every floor, in every store, the House of Fraser summer sale starts tomorrow.
With Stena ceiling line, you can enjoy very affordable prices every single day of the year.
Last year, QuickFit met the needs of over 4 million motorists. Now QuickFit has a new team member, a highly trained brake specialist. Qualified to work on virtually every make and model of car, they know your braking system inside out. Brake safe. Yet another good reason for stopping at QuickFit.
The runaway American football star O.J. Simpson stood in a Los Angeles court tonight charged with murdering his ex-wife and her male friend. In court, Simpson said only 2 words, as ITN's Mark Lyons reports from the United States.
Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Making his first appearance since his dramatic arrest last Friday night, a somber and exhausted O.J. Simpson, accompanied by his lawyer, replies to the murder charges that could see one of America's favorite celebrities facing the death penalty. Simpson's plea of not guilty was not what the court had expected, his lawyer arguing for the release of court documents and forensic reports to aid their defense. 1 week on from the brutal murders of Simpson's ex-wife and a male friend, America is still coming to terms with the events that led to the former football star and multi-millionaire being chased for 2 hours by the police along the Los Angeles freeway, with bystanders cheering him on until his final arrest. Following the court appearance, the prosecution outlined their case to reporters, at pains to separate O.J. Simpson, the celebrity, from the man now in the dock.
We should not forget the fact that we have 2 victims who were brutally slain, that it was a premeditated murder, that it was done with deliberation and premeditation. That is precisely what he's charged with, because that is what we will prove.
Once a national hero who had everything, now charged with double murder, Simpson will remain in jail until his next appearance in 10 days' time. Mark Lyons, News at 10 in the United States.
Here, the House of Lords has thrown out an attempt to restore the homosexual age of consent to 21. The amendment put forward by the Duke of Norfolk was rejected by a majority of 63. It means that the reduction of the age to 18, agreed in February, stays. Judge Ian Starforth Hill, who told an 8-year-old sex attack victim she was no angel, has caused controversy again. He told the car thief today that he wished the teenager had been hurt in the crash he caused. And the crewman on board the QE2 has been arrested and questioned about the alleged rape of one of the liner's stewardesses in her cabin. It's alleged to have happened as the QE2 approached Southampton on Saturday morning. The crewman has been released on police bail. The government's planning a new round of spending cuts, which could mean the loss of 22,000 defence jobs. The cuts will be deep. The Royal Air Force expects to be hardest hit. Here's our defence correspondent, Geoffrey Archer.
The Royal Air Force faces the deepest cuts, manpower to be reduced from 70 to 60,000 by the end of the century. Many job losses will be in engineering. A Defence Ministry study shows that some of the RAF's own maintenance costs 50% more than if it were done by the private sector. Recently, however, some Tornado aircraft were found with serious problems after outside maintenance work. Many in the RAF believe civilian mechanics don't share their high standards. Because of Treasury demands for cuts in public spending, Defence Secretary Malcolm Rifkind has said he'll sacrifice support services to preserve the military front line. One option is to close the Rosyth naval base. The Navy say they no longer need it, but Scots will fight tooth and nail to keep it open.
The Scots jobs dependent on Rosyth amount to 8,000, making it Scotland's biggest and most expensive closure for years if Mr Rifkind is prepared to allow it to go ahead.
Where else could defence cuts be made? The Treasury wants to save £750 million a year. Cuts in stores and spares could save £40 million, amalgamating military headquarters £15 million, cutting Defence Ministry staff £35 million, and axing the Royal Tournament could save £2 million. The military have warned that deep cuts will make it harder to mount huge operations like in the Gulf War. The government's own backbenchers are anxious.
We saw in the Gulf that we were short of medical resources, but those are going to be cut still further. We were short of logistic resources, but they're talking about cutting the stocks of ammunition still further.
The Defence Ministry wants to invest some of the savings in new ships and planes, but there are reports the Treasury is trying to block that and keep all the money for the public purse.
Cricket, New Zealand came agonisingly close to beating England at Lord's for the first time today. Chasing 407 to win, England were reduced to 254 for 8 at the close. For that, New Zealand were indebted to fast bowler Dion Nash, here taking the wicket of Alex Stewart.
Got him.
Nash accounted for the entire England top order and becomes the first man to take 10 wickets and score a half-century at the ground.
That's 4 for him.
Golf, South Africa's Ernie Els won the US Open at Oakmont this evening after a second playoff. He beat American Lauren Roberts. They were tied after 18 holes, but then Els took the second hole in a sudden death. He's the only fourth non-American to win the title in 67 years. Scotland's Colin Montgomery finished joint second. And in tonight's World Cup, this goal from Romario gave Brazil the favourites an early lead over Russia. The South Americans dominated the first half, but also squandered several chances. The latest score is 2-0. 3 Britons are tonight celebrating first-round successes on the opening day of Wimbledon. Jeremy Bates, Chris Wilkinson and Andrew Foster are all through. The defending men's champion Pete Sampras comfortably beat American Jared Palmer 7-6, 7-5, 6-3. Andre Agassi defeated the Italian Andrea Gaudenzi 6-2, 6-7, 6-3, 6-2. And Martina Navratilova kept her Wimbledon hopes alive, beating Britain's Claire Taylor 6-2, 6-3. Graham Miller has our report on day 1.
Incomparable Rodney George Laver, OBE.
Day 1 of the 108th Championships, but Rod Laver still looks the same. It's 25 years since he won the Grand Slam here, and the last of his 4 titles. The Duke and Duchess of Kent marked the moments with a special presentation. On court, Pete Sampras, the defending champion, who models himself on Laver, seemingly right down to those long shorts. A few problems against fellow American Jared Palmer. But the #1 seed won through easily enough in straight sets, hoping his performance pleased the master, Laver.
I think maybe champions are born, not made, and I think he was obviously a great player, and I think if he was playing in today's game with the technology and everything, he'd be in the top of the game.
If the centre court wanted a return to the bad old McEnroe days, Andre Agassi provided it. A bit of fun really against Andrea Gaudenzi. In the end, the 1992 champion not having too tough an afternoon, winning in 4 sets. British men fared pretty well. Chris Wilkinson, Andrew Foster and Jeremy Bates all winning through to round 2. Officially, it's Ladies' Day tomorrow, but Martina Navratilova began her long farewell today. Claire Taylor from Oxfordshire was making her debut. She once queued from 6 in the morning to watch her idol on centre court. Sadly, she was little more than a spectator again today.
2 sets to love.
So, a great day for Martina, a good day for the Brits, and Rod Laver back on centre court. Wimbledon has begun with a smile. Tomorrow, Steffi Graf starts her bid for her 4th successive championship, but her opponent, Lori McNeil, is a dangerous floater in the draw. It could make day 2 one to remember as well. Graham Miller, News at 10, Wimbledon.
But what about that Pete Sampras comparison of the great Rod Laver to the players of today? There are many who feel that the men's game has lost something of its style and character. They want changes in the rules and the technology to make it more interesting. David Rose has our special report.
If people yearn for a golden age of tennis, perhaps this is what they mean. Personalities like Ilie Nastase, not many aces, good rallies, and fun for both spectators and players. But these stars of a previous era are critical of the modern game.
Today, the technology of rackets with the ball coming in at 120, 125 mile an hour, it's pretty hard to put any delicate spins on it.
It's boring. It's boring. And guys take 25 seconds in between every single point.
We didn't think about the money. I think we just think having fun on the court. And I can see, last year and years before the Wimbledon, they even when they win, they don't ever smile. It's a great point. They don't smile either.
But there is a tendency to forget that Nastase, like McEnroe and Connors, did walk a tightrope between charm and charmless petulance. And in fact, he's just been banned yet again. Today, Pete Sampras is the best player in the world, but he's accused by the press of being boring, perhaps because he doesn't fight with the officials.
We kind of let our racket do the talking, and I don't really see what the problem is with that. Like when you played in Laver and Rosewall, it was professional, and they didn't rub it in, they didn't throw rackets, they didn't yell at umpires, and there's really no reason to apologize for that.
Goran Ivanisevic is 6'4". With a graphite racket and hard compression tennis balls, he can serve at around 130 miles an hour. On grass, that's an awful lot of aces. But big serving's nothing new. In the 50s, Pancho Gonzalez would serve it up to 112 with a wooden racket. In the 70s, Roscoe Tanner regularly served at 120. But recently, since graphite rackets became common, top men like Michael Stitch are now serving at over 130. There's now only a miserable 4 minutes of play in every hour on grass. Suggestions to make the game more watchable include raising the net, allowing only one serve, and forcing the server to keep 1 foot on the ground. Equipment makers are fighting a 20% drop in sales. Their answer, softer, slower balls, producing longer rallies.
This decline has to be halted, but it can only do so by the governing body sitting down with the top players in the world and coming to a decision that the rules of tennis needs to be changed.
The International Tennis Federation is now trying to persuade the players to accept softer balls and to speed up play.
If we can save 10 seconds between every point, we've reduced matches by probably a 5-set match by probably an hour and a half. And I think that's what the public wants to see.
These two brash young doubles players claim what the American spectator wants is bright clothes, loud music, lights, and the freedom to make as much noise as they want during points.
Right now tennis isn't considered the thing to do, or in the States it's not considered cool.
British kids may agree. They'd probably prefer a British winner at Wimbledon. David Rose, News at 10, Roehampton.
I'm off to work on my old-fashioned tennis game. We're back tomorrow. From all of us here at ITN, good night.
Mystic means lead to the discovery of a murdered man, but the attorneys are sceptical to say the least. Drama in Street Legal this evening at 10:45.